Thank you. Hi, everyone. What a great event, huh? Wow. Great companies. Amazing. So motivating. Really cool. All right, let's go to... Did I already push the button? All right, it seems so. To the topic of footwear recycling. In order to dive into the topic of footwear recycling, it's really important to line out, to first understand what is the footwear industry all about. And as you can see, we're talking about huge volume of shoes. 23 billion pairs, this is what I found online as a number for 2015 only. And this number is growing steadily around 3 to 4%. So meaning we are really consuming a lot of shoes. I mean, which is basically well, I don't want to use the word problem, but this is really a problem in that sense, because it's mainly landfilled or incinerated, and there is, to my knowledge, no industrial footwear recycling available that would be able to process the volume of the shoes. There are a lot of projects and pilots, basically, just like ours, but not real, like you would see in the textile recycling, a huge machine that processes thousands and thousands of tons of shoe waste per year. Why is that so? Because the shoe in itself, it's very complex. It's not just like with the textile, with the garment you have, sorry, this has a mind on its own. So you have a lot of materials there. It's not just like in the garments you have cotton and polyester or whatsoever. Here you have rubber, you have foam, you have textiles, polyester, polypropylene, but you also have plastic, you have metal, you have ferrous metal, non-ferrous metal, and so on and so forth. You have leather, you have partly wood, and so on. So it's really complex. And this complexity basically is the challenge that we took on to overcome in the topic of footwear recycling. And this we could do in a joint collaboration with our partners. So as a result, just lately, a month ago, we opened up the first footwear recycling pilot. You can see in the slide, which is a first industrial footwear recycling pilot that is ready to process any type of shoe. Not basically limited to the type like sports shoes, running shoes, or whatsoever, any type of shoe. To better understand the history or some facts on this line is we have invested around a million euros in a timeline of 5 years, which of course might not seem a lot, might seem a lot, but this was in the beginning, as in German say, aller Anfang ist schwer. In the beginning, it's always difficult when you're taking on a challenge. But what we could achieve a waste reduction of the shoes, basically of the end of life shoes, of over 70%. And we have throughput of around 1 ton per day per shift, meaning we're planning to process around 2 tons per day in a continuous process, which means we are going to, it's operable in 2 shift production. So what do we have as an output? We will get to that later in detail, but as you can see here, we have rubber, we have leather, we have foam, and other materials. So, how does it do it? This is the line, this is a scheme of the line, basically as it stands in our plant in Wolfen, close to Leipzig. The shoes are, as you can see, the shoes are transported into a thing that is a shredder. Basically, it shreds into pieces. After it shreds into pieces, all ferrous metal parts are taken out, are separated. Then it further goes into a machine that we called a DLAM machine. It's an IP that has been developed during this project. Basically, it's a machine that separates rubber. For example, when a rubber piece and a foam piece are stuck to each other, basically that separates them from each other in a mechanical way. Don't ask me how exactly it does, but it works. So then it goes into a air separation process, quite simple. Within the air separation process, lighter fractions are separated from heavier fractions. The difficulty here for us was to get away from lighter fractions into high density fractions, basically. And meaning that when you have a smaller piece of rubber that is basically the same weight as the bigger piece of foam, for example, that you can still separate these two from each other. So this was really the challenge for our project. And through some tweaks and through some technological changes and add-ons on this air separation process, we were able to do exactly that. So it works quite well. After that project, after that process, it goes into a standard metal check, which just checks out and throws out anything that is ferrous, non-ferrous, or whatsoever. So it just blows it away. And then we have some pieces that are roughly size of a tip of a finger, that goes into a granulation process and then into a fiberization process or a pulverization process, depending on which material. Important thing here is that we don't input, well, we play with the purity of the output by tweaking the input. So we are sorting the input into certain groups, like leather shoes, for example, like street shoes, and then we're putting that batch into the line, and that recycling process would have then a different setting, totally different settings. All right, so what are the outputs of our line? As you can see here, we have here of street shoes or sport shoes, if you will. So shoes that have not only foam but also rubber in them. And you can see here the pieces that in the middle, you can see the pieces that are coming out of the air separation process. So you can see there are still some fibers, textile fibers and so on them, on the fraction. But when we further granulate it, it basically blows away, it basically gets cleaned, and then we have clean granules that can be used. For example, you see on the top, on your right, on the top, you can see a sample of flooring material. On the flooring for sports fields, for example, or below. For example, below outside the streets, tiles, or which type ever. And below those panels, you can see a sole, shoe sole. This is not a coincidence. We also tested the possibility to use the powder, the rubber powder, brought back into the shoe sole. And at our stand right back here at ICO, you can see some samples of these soles. They were actually very well the results were very good. Here you can see also this type of material. These are the sport shoes. So as I've said, they are the shoe fractions sport shoes, the recyclates for the flooring, and the recyclates for the footwear production. Now you have to note that this was a long journey for us and very challenges, but this was really not the end. This really just opened up the topic of footwear recycling as such. So it's just basically, let's say, as Churchill said, the end of the beginning, really. So there's a lot of development opportunities going from here. For example, further testing of these recyclates into various different outputs, not only the sole, but of course the sole or other shoe material, insole and outer sole, but also into flooring and so on, but also into other products. And there really we can be creative, there are no limits set, except the technicals, of course. This is of course one challenge. The second challenge is, or the next development phase can be the more thorough sorting of these materials. Right now we are sorting by density. So we call it rubber, but it's not, of course it's various types of rubbers are coming out, natural, artificial and so on. So NIR-based sorting technologies can be introduced into the topic of footwear recycling. But as well, the introduction of certain outputs, for example, the textile fluff that we have, it's not a product per se for us right now, but that could be, for example, something that could be introduced into a chemical recycling of schemes that there are being developed for the plastics industry. So there's a lot of development potential in this concept, in this topic, issue of footwear recycling. And it is all possible by collaboration. This is our experience. ICO as a, let's say, young company and not a big company, we can only achieve our challenges through collaboration and collaboration only. So we have need our, and you will see further after this, my presentation in the podium discussion, you will see our partners with whom we've worked very closely and developed these solutions and these outputs. So, right. This has brought me to the end of my presentation, but not the end of the quest of footwear recycling. So thank you very much for your attention.